Olivia Martinez wiped the sweat from her forehead and stared at the jumble of wires and crystal components on her workbench. The small laboratory tucked away in the least visited section of Starfleet Academy's engineering wing was quiet, except for the soft hum of her equipment. Just how she liked it. She picked up the cylindrical metal housing about the size of her forearm and carefully fitted the power cell she had been modifying for the past 3 months. "Come on," she whispered. "Work this time." The door to her lab slid open with a soft hiss. Olivia quickly covered her project with a cloth before turning around. Commander Richard Bell stood in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space. His perpetual frown deepened when he saw her. "Engineer Martinez, still playing with your toys, I see." Olivia forced a polite smile. "Good morning, Commander. Just finishing some theoretical work on portable energy containment." Bell walked into the room, his eyes scanning the cluttered workbenches with barely disguised contempt. He picked up a technical sketch showing a cross-section of what looked like a sword handle with complex internal components. "Energy swords?" He laughed. "You're wasting Starfleet resources on fantasy weapons? The Arcturus project needs engineers focusing on practical defense systems, not—" He waved the paper dismissively. "Childhood dreams." "It's not just a sword, sir," Olivia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "If my calculations are correct, this contained plasma weapon could cut through any known material, including Viridian shields." Bell tossed the sketch back onto her desk. "Martinez, we need practical weapons that can be mass-produced for our fleets, not melee weapons from science fiction movies. The Viridian Collective has ships that can destroy planets. What good would a sword do even if you could make it work?" Olivia bit back the response she wanted to give. 6 years at Starfleet Academy and 3 in the Advanced Weapons Division had taught her when to pick her battles. "Yes, sir, but the energy containment principles could have wider applications. You have 2 months left on this research grant. After that, I expect you to join a real project." Bell turned to leave, but paused at the door. "The weapons board meets next week. I suggest you have something more substantial to show than drawings and dreams." After he left, Olivia uncovered her prototype and slammed it down on the table harder than she intended. The commander was the 3rd person this week to dismiss her work. She'd been developing this concept since her 2nd year as a cadet, refining calculations and building prototypes on her own time until she finally received a small research grant. She knew the concept was sound. A contained plasma blade, channeled through focusing crystals and held in place by a magnetic field. The theory had been proven in larger applications, but no one had succeeded in miniaturizing it into a handheld weapon. Everyone said it was impossible. The power requirements alone made it impractical. But Olivia had solved the power problem 3 weeks ago. Now she was struggling with blade stability. Her computer terminal beeped with an incoming message. It was from her friend Zoe Baker in Diplomatic Services. "Turn on the news, Liv. It's happening again." Olivia activated the room's view screen. A news anchor was reporting on another failed diplomatic mission with the Viridian Collective. The alien civilization had destroyed a human outpost on the edge of the neutral zone, claiming it was a military installation violating their territory. Starfleet insisted it was a scientific research station in unclaimed space. It was the 3rd such incident in 2 months. Relations with the Viridians had been deteriorating ever since first contact 5 years ago. The reptilian species possessed technology far beyond humanity's current capabilities, and made no secret of their belief that humans were an inferior species, unworthy of equal diplomatic status. Olivia turned off the screen and returned to her prototype. This wasn't just about proving everyone wrong anymore. Humanity needed every advantage it could get. She worked through lunch, carefully adjusting the crystal alignment. By late afternoon, her eyes were burning from fatigue, but she was ready to test the latest configuration. She placed the prototype in a containment field, stepped back, and activated the remote trigger. The device hummed to life. A thin blue beam extended about half a meter from the emitter, wavered, then collapsed with a pop and a shower of sparks. "Better," Olivia muttered, checking the readings. The plasma containment had held for 3.2 seconds. Her best result yet, but still far from practical use. She was making notes when the lab door opened again. Olivia barely looked up, expecting it to be Belle returning to criticize her work. Instead, she was startled to see Admiral Samantha Wright, head of Starfleet Research and Development. "Admiral!" Olivia jumped to her feet, knocking over a cup of cold coffee. Admiral Wright was a legend, the architect of humanity's rapid technological advancement over the past decade and the most respected scientific mind in Starfleet. She was also known for her blunt manner and impatience with bureaucracy. "At ease, engineer. I watched your last test from the monitoring station." The Admiral picked up the prototype and examined it with expert eyes. "An energy blade weapon. Ambitious." "Yes, ma'am." Olivia waited for the familiar ridicule. Instead, Admiral Wright placed the prototype back on the bench and asked, "What's your containment time?" "Just over 3 seconds now, ma'am." "And your power source?" "Modified quantum cell with crystal amplification." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Commander Bell wants to terminate your project." Olivia's heart sank. "I know the application seems impractical, but is it impractical?" Wright interrupted. "Our conventional weapons can't penetrate. Viridian shields. Sometimes an impractical solution is exactly what's needed when practical ones fail." She walked around the lab, examining Olivia's notes and calculations. "The weapons board meets next week. You're scheduled to present." "Yes, ma'am. I'll have better results by then." "You'll need more than better results. You'll need to convince a room full of traditional military minds that your toy deserves continued funding." The Admiral's expression softened slightly. "I've reviewed your file, Martinez. Top of your class in theoretical weapons design, but repeatedly passed over for leadership positions." Olivia said nothing. Her reputation for pursuing fantastical projects had often overshadowed her actual accomplishments. Admiral Wright moved toward the door. "I'm extending your grant by 6 months, ma'am." Olivia couldn't hide her surprise. Sometimes the most ridiculous ideas turn out to be the most important. Bell and the others are looking for conventional solutions to an unconventional threat. The Admiral paused at the doorway. "Prove them wrong, engineer." After Admiral Wright left, Olivia stood in stunned silence. Then, with renewed determination, she turned back to her workbench. 6 more months. It would be enough. It had to be. 2 days later, she made the breakthrough. The crystal alignment stabilized, and the containment field held. When she activated the prototype, a steady beam of blue energy extended and maintained its form. It hummed with power, casting an eerie glow across her amazed face. Olivia tested its cutting capability against a metal plate. The energy blade sliced through it like it was paper. She deactivated the device and held it in her trembling hand. After years of mockery and doubt, she had done it. But instead of immediately reporting her success, Olivia made a decision. The prototype was working, but it wasn't perfect yet. If she presented an unfinished version, Bell and the others would find some reason to dismiss it. No, she would take the full 6 months Admiral Wright had given her. She would perfect it beyond any possible criticism. What she didn't know was that perfecting her toy would soon become a matter of survival, not just for her career, but for humanity itself. 3 months passed. Olivia's weapon was now reliable and refined. She had improved the power cell to last for hours instead of minutes, and the blade could cut through almost any material known to humanity. She named it the Plasma Saber in her private notes, though she still called it an energy containment system in her official reports. Olivia sat at her workbench, making final adjustments to the handle design when her communication device buzzed. It was Admiral Wright. "Engineer Martinez, report to Briefing Room 7 immediately." The urgency in the Admiral's voice was unusual. Olivia quickly secured her prototype in her work locker and hurried through the halls of Starfleet Academy. When she arrived at the briefing room, she was surprised to find it filled with high-ranking officers and civilian officials. Admiral Wright stood at the head of the table beside a tall, distinguished man Olivia recognized as Ambassador Daniel Foster, the head of Human Diplomatic Relations. "Engineer Martinez, please sit down," Admiral Wright said, gesturing to an empty chair. Ambassador Foster looked tired and worried. The situation with the Viridian Collective has deteriorated beyond diplomatic channels. They've refused all communication for the past week. Our intelligence suggests they're preparing for war. A holographic display activated in the center of the table, showing a large Viridian warship. Admiral Wright pointed to unusual structures on its hull. These are new. We believe they're enhanced shield generators based on technology we haven't encountered before. Another officer, whom Olivia didn't recognize, added, "Our simulations show that our current weapons would be useless against these shields." Admiral Wright looked directly at Olivia. "Engineer Martinez, what's the status of your energy weapon project?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Olivia. She swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how junior she was compared to everyone else present. "The prototype is functional, Admiral. It can maintain a stable plasma blade for extended periods and can cut through all tested materials." "Including Viridian shield technology?" asked Ambassador Foster. "Based on our current understanding of their shield composition, yes. The blade operates on a different principle than our standard energy weapons. It should bypass their defenses, Commander." Bell, who was sitting across from Olivia, scoffed. "With all due respect, Admiral, we can't base our response on theoretical weapons that haven't been field tested." "I agree," said Admiral Wright, "which is why Engineer Martinez will join Ambassador Foster's delegation to the Viridian homeworld." Olivia nearly dropped the water glass she had just picked up. "Me? On a diplomatic mission?" "The Viridians have requested a final meeting before they make their intentions clear," Ambassador Foster explained. "They've specifically asked for technical representatives to discuss potential technological exchange." Commander Bell stood up. "This is highly irregular. If we're sending a technical advisor, it should be someone with diplomatic experience." "We're not sending her as a diplomat," Admiral Wright replied firmly. "We're sending her because if negotiations fail, we need someone who understands how her weapon works against their technology." Olivia's mind raced. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow morning. The USS Constellation will transport the diplomatic team. Pack what you need, including your prototype." After the meeting ended, Olivia rushed back to her lab. She worked through the night, creating a second prototype and documenting all her research. If something happened to her on this mission, Starfleet would have everything they needed to reproduce her work. Morning came too quickly. Olivia hadn't slept, but adrenaline kept her alert as she boarded the Constellation with Ambassador Foster and his team. The diplomatic group consisted of 12 people, including 2 security officers, several diplomats, and a few technical specialists like herself. They entered faster than light travel, and 3 days later, they arrived at the Viridian homeworld. It was a massive planet with 2 suns, covered in sprawling cities that gleamed with advanced technology. A Viridian shuttle met them in orbit and transported them to the surface. Olivia had only seen Viridians in recordings before. In person, they were even more intimidating. The reptilian beings stood nearly 7 feet tall, with scales that shifted colors in the light. Their 4-fingered hands ended in sharp claws, and their eyes, 3 of them arranged in a triangle on their faces, blinked independently of each other. The diplomatic team was led to a vast domed building. Inside, a group of Viridians waited, in what appeared to be a council chamber. The lead Viridian, introduced as Supreme Commander Zaltak, wore ornate armor and looked down at the humans with obvious disdain. "Ambassador Foster," the Supreme Commander spoke through a translation device, "we welcome you to Viridia Prime." "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," Ambassador Foster replied with practiced diplomacy. "We hope to resolve our differences peacefully." The Supreme Commander made a clicking sound that the translator didn't catch. "Yes. Peace. An admirable goal." Olivia noticed that armed Viridian guards had positioned themselves at all exits. Something felt wrong. The meeting progressed with formal exchanges, but there was no real negotiation happening. Instead, Supreme Commander Zaltak began describing Viridian technological achievements, particularly their military capabilities. "Our newest shield technology," he said, activating a demonstration, "can withstand any weapon in the human arsenal." A floating orb appeared, surrounded by a faint purple glow. Another Viridian fired what looked like an energy rifle at it. The car beam dissipated harmlessly against the shield. "Impressive," said Ambassador Foster cautiously. "Now," continued Zoltak, "watch what happens when we test human weapons against it." A table rose from the floor displaying several human weapons. A Viridian picked up a standard Starfleet energy pistol and fired at the orb. Again, the shield held without any sign of weakening. One of the security officers with the diplomatic team shifted uncomfortably. Olivia realized this wasn't a negotiation. It was a demonstration of superiority. "Before we arrived," Zoltak said, his voice taking on a harder edge, "we detected energy readings from your ship. Weapon scans." Ambassador Foster straightened. "Standard protocol for an unknown environment. We meant no—" "Silence," interrupted Zoltak. "Your weapons are useless against us. Your ships are inferior. Your technology is primitive." He stepped closer to the human delegation. "The Viridian Collective has reached a decision. Humanity will serve as a vassal species. Your resources and territories will come under our protection and guidance." "That's not acceptable," Ambassador Foster replied firmly. "Humanity does not submit to—" A deafening alarm suddenly filled the chamber. Zoltak received a communication in the Viridian language, then looked at the humans with his three eyes narrowing. "Your ship has taken aggressive action. It attempted to scan our planetary defenses." "There must be a misunderstanding," Ambassador Foster insisted. "There is no misunderstanding. Your species has proven itself untrustworthy and aggressive." Zoltak made a gesture, and the guards moved forward. "You will be detained while we neutralize your vessel. Then you will witness the price of defiance." The security officers reached for their weapons, but found themselves quickly overwhelmed by the larger, stronger Viridians. Olivia's bag was roughly searched, but the guard tossed her prototype aside, assuming it was merely a scientific instrument. As they were led away, Olivia heard a distant explosion. Through a vast window, she saw the constellation under attack from Viridian warships. The human ship's shields flared brightly, then failed. Ambassador Foster's face paled. "You're making a terrible mistake," he told Zoltak. "No," replied the Supreme Commander as the humans were pushed toward a detention area. "The mistake was thinking your species was ready to join galactic civilization as equals." Olivia clutched her prototype, which the guards had overlooked. As they were locked in a large cell, she caught Ambassador Foster's eye and gave him the slightest nod. They had never intended negotiation. This was the beginning of an invasion. The cell was cold and dimly lit. 12 humans sat or stood in the large circular room, their faces grim. Through a small window high on the wall, they could see 3 moons rising over the Viridian landscape. "They're going to attack Earth," said Ambassador Foster, his voice low. "The constellation was supposed to send a warning if negotiations failed." "They planned this from the start," said Kyle Patterson, one of the security officers. His uniform was torn from the struggle when they were captured. This wasn't a diplomatic meeting, it was a trap. Olivia sat in the corner, her back against the wall, the cylinder of her prototype hidden in her sleeve. The Viridian guards had barely looked at it during their search, dismissing it as some kind of scanner or research tool. Their arrogance had worked in her favor. "Can anyone contact the ship?" asked a young diplomat named Natalie Owen. "They've taken our communicators," Ambassador Foster replied, "and I suspect the constellation has already been destroyed." The room fell silent as the reality of their situation sank in. They were prisoners, on an alien world, their ship likely destroyed, and Earth had no idea of the coming danger. Olivia looked at her fellow captives. Most were diplomats with no combat training. The 2 security officers were skilled but unarmed. She tightened her grip on the concealed prototype. It was time. "I might have a way to get us out," she said, standing up. Ambassador Foster looked at her with tired eyes. "What do you mean?" "I have a weapon they didn't find." She pulled the cylinder from her sleeve. "It's what I've been working on at Starfleet." Security Officer Patterson moved closer. "What kind of weapon is that?" "A plasma blade. It can cut through their shields and probably through this door too." Ambassador Foster frowned. "Even if we escape this cell, we're in the middle of their government complex. There are hundreds of Viridians between us and any chance of escape. We have to try, Olivia insisted. Every minute we wait is another minute they have to prepare their attack on Earth. The ambassador considered this, then nodded. You're right. What's your plan? First, we need a distraction when the guards come to check on us. Then I'll use my weapon to get us out. They didn't have to wait long. About an hour later, 2 Viridian guards entered the cell carrying what looked like food, rations. As planned, Patterson stumbled forward, appearing weak and disoriented. The second guard moved to restrain him. Now! Olivia shouted. She pressed the activation switch on her prototype. With a distinctive hum, a bright blue energy blade extended from the handle. The sound caught the attention of the guards, who turned toward her with expressions of confusion that quickly changed to alarm. Olivia swung the plasma blade in a wide arc. It cut through the first guard's weapon like it was made of paper, sending sparks flying. The second guard activated a personal shield, the same technology that had rendered human weapons useless. Olivia didn't hesitate. She thrust the blade forward, and it passed through the shield as if it wasn't there. The guard jumped back, narrowly avoiding the plasma blade. It works, she gasped, almost surprised despite her confidence in her calculations. Patterson seized the moment to tackle the disarmed guard. The other human surged forward, overwhelming the second guard despite his superior strength. We need to move quickly, Ambassador Foster said, picking up the fallen guard's weapons. They'll sound an alarm soon. Olivia led the way to the cell door. Her blade cut through the locking mechanism, and the door slid open. The corridor outside was empty, but they could hear movement nearby. Which way? Asked Natalie. We need to find a communication system, said Ambassador Foster. We have to warn Earth about what's happening. And we need to find a ship, added Patterson. Even if we can send a message, we still need to get off this planet. They moved cautiously through the corridors, using Olivia's weapon to bypass locked doors. They encountered a few Viridian workers who weren't expecting escaped prisoners and managed to subdue them without raising alarms. But their luck didn't last. As they entered a large, circular room with multiple exits, an alarm began to blare throughout the facility. They know we've escaped, Patterson said, checking the doors. This way looks like it might lead to a hangar. Before they could move, a door on the opposite side of the room slid open. 6 Viridian guards rushed in, led by a larger Viridian in ornate armor, an officer of some kind. All carried energy weapons and had personal shields activated. Surrender now, the officer commanded, through his translator. There is nowhere to go. Ambassador Foster stepped forward. We will not surrender. Your unprovoked aggression against our people will not stand. The Viridian officer laughed, a strange hissing sound. Your species is young and weak. You have no leverage here. Olivia moved to stand beside the ambassador, her plasma blade humming with energy. We have this. The officer's 3 eyes widened slightly at the sight of the energy blade, a primitive toy. Our shields. Olivia didn't let him finish. She threw a piece of debris at the nearest guard. When it bounced off his shield, she lunged forward, her blade passing through the shield and stopping just short of the guard's chest. The room went completely still. The Viridian guards stared in shock at the blue energy blade that had penetrated their supposedly impenetrable defense. Not so primitive after all, Olivia said. The officer recovered quickly. Kill them all! Chaos erupted. The Viridians opened fire. But Patterson and the other security officer had taken the guards' weapons and returned fire from behind a barricade of furniture. Ambassador Foster led the civilians toward the far door while Olivia used her plasma blade to deflect energy bolts back at the attackers. She had never trained for combat, but months of testing her prototype had given her a feel for how the blade moved. She blocked shots that would have hit the retreating diplomats, the energy dissipating against her blade or reflecting back toward the Viridians. This way, Patterson called, finding a control panel by one of the doors. I think this leads to a communication center. Olivia backed toward the door, still deflecting shots. A bolt grazed her arm and she gasped in pain but kept her grip on the weapon. The Viridian officer charged toward her, drawing what looked like an energy sword of their own, a crude version compared to her refined design. Their weapons met in a shower of sparks. The Viridian's blade flickered and failed against the superior energy of Olivia's prototype. With a quick twist, she sliced through the hilt of the officer's weapon, then cut a deep gouge in his armor. He fell back, shocked and injured. "Olivia, come on," Ambassador Foster called from the doorway. She backed away from the stunned Viridians and ran through the door. Patterson sealed it behind her, then used one of the Viridian weapons to weld it shut. "That won't hold them for long," he said. They found themselves in what appeared to be a control room. Screens showed different parts of the complex, including the hangar bay they were looking for. More concerning were the images of Viridian warships preparing for launch. "We're too late," Ambassador Foster said, pointing to a large screen showing a tactical display. "The invasion fleet is already mobilizing." Natalie had found a communication console. "I think I can operate this. It's similar to the systems we studied in their technological briefings. Try to send a message to Starfleet," Ambassador Foster instructed. "Warning code Alpha 17. Include everything we've learned about their shields and Olivia's weapon." While Natalie worked on the communication, Olivia stared at the tactical display. "Those ships will reach Earth in days. Even if our message gets through, Starfleet won't have time to build enough plasma blades to make a difference." The sound of pounding came from the sealed door. The Viridians were trying to break through. "We need another plan," said Patterson. "And we need it now." The pounding on the door grew louder. Metal began to glow red where the Viridians were cutting through. "I got through," Natalie shouted from the communication console. "Message sent to Starfleet with top priority encryption. If any human ship is within range, they'll receive it." "Nice work," Ambassador Foster said, "but we still need to get out of here." Olivia studied the screens showing different parts of the complex. "There," she pointed to a small landing bay with several shuttlecraft. "That's our best chance. It's 2 levels down from here." Security Officer Patterson nodded. "Those shuttles look similar to the one that brought us from the constellation. I might be able to fly one." The door behind them groaned. The metal was beginning to melt. "We don't have much time," Ambassador Foster warned. "Everyone, gather whatever weapons you can find." They quickly collected the few Viridian weapons they had seized and prepared to move out. Olivia checked her plasma blade. The power cell indicator showed it still had plenty of charge. "There's a maintenance shaft," she said, pointing to a narrow passage on one of the screens. "It connects to the lower levels. We can avoid the main corridors." Patterson found the entrance to the shaft behind a panel in the wall. One by one, they climbed inside just as the door to the control room finally gave way. They heard angry Viridian voices as they crawled deeper into the passage. The maintenance shaft was cramped and dark. They moved as quietly as possible, following Olivia's directions based on what she had seen on the security screens. After 15 minutes of careful progress, they reached a hatch that should open near the landing bay. Patterson peered through a small gap in the hatch. 2 guards at the entrance to the bay, several technicians working on the shuttles. "We need a distraction," Ambassador Foster said. Olivia looked at her plasma blade. "I can give you one." Before anyone could stop her, she pushed the hatch open and leapt into the corridor. The guards turned, startled by her sudden appearance. Olivia activated her weapon, the blue energy blade humming to life. "Human," one guard shouted, raising his weapon. Olivia moved faster than she knew she could. Months of testing her prototype had given her a feel for its balance and movement. She ducked under the first energy blast and swung her blade in a wide arc. It cut cleanly through the guard's weapon, rendering it useless. The second guard activated his shield and drew a short energy baton. He charged at Olivia, swinging the baton with incredible strength. She barely managed to block it with her plasma blade. The 2 weapons crackled where they met, sending sparks flying. Patterson emerged from the maintenance shaft and tackled the distracted guard from behind. The rest of the humans followed, rushing toward the landing bay door. Inside the bay, the technicians fled at the sight of armed humans. Ambassador Foster led the diplomats toward the nearest shuttle, while Patterson and the other security officer secured the area. "Hurry," Olivia called, still holding her position at the door. She could hear more Viridians approaching. Patterson had reached the shuttle and was working to activate it. The controls are similar enough. I can fly this. The shuttle's engines hummed to life just as a squad of Viridian soldiers rounded the corner. Olivia deflected their first volley of energy blasts, but she was forced to retreat toward the shuttle. Olivia, come on. Ambassador Foster shouted from the shuttle ramp. She backed up slowly, still deflecting blasts with her blade. One shot got past her guard and struck her leg. She stumbled but stayed upright. Just as she reached the ramp, a massive Viridian in elaborate armor appeared. Even among his own kind, he was imposing. Olivia recognized him immediately. Supreme Commander Zaltak. The human with the energy blade, he said, his voice cold even through the translator. Impressive weapon for such a primitive species. This primitive just beat your unbeatable shields, Olivia replied, gritting her teeth against the pain in her leg. Zaltak drew a weapon of his own, a much larger version of the energy baton the guard had used. Technology can be copied. The will to use it cannot. He lunged forward with surprising speed for his size. Olivia met his attack with her plasma blade. The weapons clashed in a blinding flash of energy. Zaltak's strength was overwhelming, pushing Olivia back toward the shuttle ramp. I can't hold him, she gasped. From inside the shuttle, Patterson fired the craft's weapons. The blast hit near Zaltak, forcing him to jump back. Olivia seized the moment to scramble up the ramp. Go! She shouted as the ramp closed behind her. The shuttle lifted off amid a hail of energy fire from the Viridian troops. Patterson piloted it through the bay doors and into the Viridian sky. They'll be after us immediately, Ambassador Foster said, helping Olivia to a seat. Natalie was treating her leg wound with a medical kit they had found on board. Where are we going? Asked one of the diplomats. We can't reach Earth in this shuttle. Patterson checked the navigation system. There's a human research outpost on the fourth moon of this system. If we can reach it, they might have a long-range vessel. A violent shake rocked the shuttle. On the rear view screen, they could see Viridian fighters in pursuit. They're gaining on us, Patterson warned. This shuttle wasn't designed for combat. Olivia limped to the shuttle's engineering panel. The design is similar to our own shuttles. If I can redirect power from life support to the engines, we might be able to outrun them long enough to reach the moon. Do it, Ambassador Foster ordered. We'll manage with reduced life support. Olivia worked quickly, rerouting power systems. The shuttle surged forward, putting distance between them and their pursuers. It's working, Patterson called out. We're approaching the moon's orbit. Ambassador Foster joined Olivia at the engineering panel. Your weapon saved us back there. I've never seen anything like it. It was just a theory until 3 months ago, she said. No one thought it would work. They called it a toy. The ambassador smiled grimly. They're not laughing now. We're not safe yet, Patterson warned. The outpost is responding to our hail, but they're reporting Viridian ships in orbit around the moon. Can we land before they intercept us? It's going to be close. The shuttle raced toward the small research outpost visible on the moon's surface. Behind them, the Viridian fighters were falling behind, but larger ships were moving to cut off their approach. Brace for emergency landing, Patterson called out. The shuttle dove sharply toward the outpost's landing pad. Energy blasts from the Viridian ships filled the space around them. One clipped their wing, sending the shuttle into a spin. Patterson fought the controls, managing to level out just before they hit the landing pad. The shuttle skidded across the metal surface and crashed into a stack of supply containers. Dazed, but alive, the humans stumbled out of the damaged shuttle. Research personnel from the outpost rushed to help them. We need to contact Starfleet immediately, Ambassador Foster told the outpost commander who came to meet them. The Viridians are preparing to attack Earth. We received your message, the commander replied. Starfleet is already mobilizing, but the news about their shields is troubling. Show them this, Olivia said, holding up her plasma blade. It can penetrate their shields. If Starfleet can reproduce it in time, we might have a chance. The commander looked at the weapon with interest. What is it? Ambassador Foster placed a hand on Olivia's shoulder. It's humanity's best hope. Above them, the Viridian ships were beginning to land. The battle for the outpost, and for Earth, was just beginning. The human research outpost was not built for defense. It was a scientific station with only basic security measures. Now, it was about to become a battlefield. We have 32 research personnel and 6 security officers, the outpost commander, Laura Wilson, told them. Our defenses won't hold against a determined Viridian assault. Ambassador Foster looked grim. How long until Starfleet reinforcements can reach us? At least 12 hours, Commander Wilson replied. We sent your weapon schematics to Starfleet Engineering. They're already working to reproduce it, but production will take time. Olivia examined the outpost layout on a display screen. We don't need to hold forever, just long enough for Starfleet to prepare. Outside, they could see Viridian ships landing in the distance. The aliens were being cautious, setting up a perimeter rather than attacking immediately. They're wary of your weapon, Patterson said to Olivia. That's the only reason they haven't stormed us yet. One plasma blade won't stop an army, Olivia replied. But maybe we can make more. She turned to Commander Wilson. This is a research station. Do you have engineering facilities? Basic ones. We're mostly focused on geological studies. Me. I need power cells, focusing crystals, and metal housing units. Commander Wilson led Olivia to the station's small engineering bay. It wasn't anything like her lab at Starfleet Academy, but it had the essential tools. Olivia immediately began sorting through available materials. I can make 3 more plasma blades with these components, she announced after taking inventory. They won't be as refined as my prototype, but they'll work. Patterson and the other security officer joined her. We'll help. Just tell us what to do. For the next 3 hours, Olivia directed an improvised production line. The outpost personnel helped where they could, amazed by the strange weapon being assembled before their eyes. Meanwhile, Ambassador Foster coordinated with Commander Wilson on defense plans. They moved all non-essential personnel to the core of the facility and set up barricades at key entry points. Viridian forces approaching, announced an outpost's security officer. Multiple squads heavily armed. They're done waiting, Ambassador Foster said. Everyone to positions. Olivia finished the last of the makeshift plasma blades just as the first explosions rocked the outpost. She handed them to Patterson and 2 other security officers who had combat training. Remember, the blade cuts through anything, including your own body, she warned. Be careful with the arc of your swing. The sound of Viridian weapons fire grew closer. The outer doors of the outpost would not hold for long. They're breaking through the east entrance, someone shouted over the communication system. Olivia gripped her own weapon and ran toward the east corridor with Patterson beside her. They arrived just as the doors gave way. Viridian soldiers poured in, their shields activated, weapons firing. Patterson activated his plasma blade, the blue energy, extending with a familiar hum. The Viridians hesitated at the sight of multiple energy blades. For Earth! Patterson shouted, charging forward. The corridor erupted in chaos. The plasma blades cut through Viridian shields and weapons alike. Human security officers with conventional weapons targeted the Viridians whose shields had been disabled. Olivia found herself facing a Viridian officer. The alien was much stronger, but Olivia had spent months practicing with her weapon. She ducked under the Viridian's swing and brought her blade up through his shield, forcing him to retreat. For 30 minutes they held the east entrance, but the Viridians were adapting, keeping their distance and using heavy weapons to wear down the human defenders. We can't hold much longer, Patterson called to Olivia, his face streaked with sweat and dust. A massive explosion suddenly shook the entire outpost. The ceiling and part of the corridor collapsed, separating Olivia from the others. Olivia! Patterson's voice came faintly through the rubble. I'm okay, she called back. Find another way around. Before she could move, a familiar figure stepped through the dust cloud. Supreme Commander Zaltak stood before her, holding what appeared to be an improved version of his energy baton. Your weapon is impressive, he said. Our scientists have already begun incorporating its principles into our own designs. He activated his weapon, which now produced a sustained energy blade similar to Olivia's, though cruder and less stable. Quick, work, Olivia replied, raising her own blade. Your species underestimates us just as we underestimated you, Zaltak said. A mistake I won't repeat. He attacked with incredible speed and strength. Olivia barely managed to block his strikes. Each impact sent painful shocks up her arms. She knew she couldn't match his physical power, but she didn't need to. Her weapon was better designed, more efficient. His blade flickered with each contact while hers remained steady. Olivia retreated step by step, letting Zoltak expend his energy in powerful but increasingly frustrated attacks. His blade began to sputter, its power source unable to maintain the energy field properly. Seeing her opportunity, Olivia sidestepped his next attack and sliced through the handle of his weapon. It exploded in a shower of sparks, sending Zoltak staggering backward. Before she could press her advantage, another explosion rocked the outpost. This one was different, coming from outside, not from the Viridian attack. Over the outpost communication system, a new voice spoke. "This is Captain Elizabeth Chen of the USS Defender. We've engaged the Viridian forces. Hold on, outpost personnel." Starfleet had arrived early. Through a damaged section of the ceiling, Olivia could see human ships engaging the Viridian vessels in orbit. Zoltak saw it too. His 3 eyes narrowed. "It changes nothing. Your ships cannot penetrate our shields." A voice came through Zoltak's communication device, speaking urgently in the Viridian language. His expression changed to one of shock. "Impossible," he said. "Our shields are failing." Olivia smiled. "Starfleet works quickly. They've already adapted my design to ship-based weapons." More explosions sounded outside as the battle in orbit intensified. The Viridian ground forces began to pull back from the outpost, responding to new orders. Zoltak backed away from Olivia, his eyes never leaving her blade. "This is not over, human. You have surprised us, but the collective does not forget." "Neither does humanity," Olivia replied. "Remember that." The Supreme Commander retreated through the hole his forces had created. Minutes later, the remaining Viridian ground troops were in full withdrawal. Starfleet security teams breached the outpost, securing the area and treating the wounded. Captain Chen herself found Olivia sitting exhausted against a wall, her plasma blade still humming in her hand. "Engineer Martinez?" the captain asked. "Your message saved us all. Starfleet has been working around the clock to reproduce your weapon design." "It worked?" Olivia asked, too tired to stand. "Better than expected. We mounted modified versions on our ships. The Viridian fleet is retreating from the entire system." Captain Chen helped Olivia to her feet. "Admiral Wright sends her regards. She said to tell you she's extending your research grant indefinitely." Olivia laughed despite her exhaustion. "I'll need a bigger lab." 3 days later, aboard the USS Defender returning to Earth, Olivia stood on the observation deck looking at the stars. Ambassador Foster joined her there. "The Viridians have requested new peace talks," he told her. "Real ones this time. Your weapon changed the balance of power." "It was just a theory," Olivia said softly. "A toy, they called it." "The most important discoveries often seem that way at first," the ambassador replied. "The Viridians respect strength. You showed them that humanity has both strength and ingenuity." As the ship entered faster than light travel, Olivia thought about her lab at Starfleet Academy. Commander Bell would be there, probably already taking credit for supporting her unconventional research. She smiled to herself. Let him. What mattered was that her work had made a difference. The plasma blade, now officially named the Martinez Energy Saber in Starfleet records, had done more than save their lives. It had saved Earth and opened a new chapter in human technological development, and nobody would ever laugh at her ideas again.